Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about exactly what the title says, failed birth control, pregnant on the IUD. So if you would like to hear my story, stay tuned. Okay guys, so like I said, I'm here to talk about failed birth control, pregnant on the IUD. In 2014, in February, I had the shocking surprise that I had failed pregnant with the IUD paragard still in. How that happened, they still don't know. I still don't know. Well, I know how it happened, but I don't know how it ended up not doing its job. So let me just give you a little bit of backstory. So I have 3 children. I had my first child at 18, my third child at 21. I have 2 girls currently and 1 boy, and I'm currently 37 weeks and 4 days pregnant with another baby boy. So after my last child, which is my 4-year-old daughter, I had opted to get the IUD. I had tried pills before. I'm not good with that. I can't remember to take a pill every day at the same time. I tried the Depo shot. That made me gain an extremely amount of weight. So those 2 birth controls were out the door. Didn't work for me. So I opted for the paragard. I heard the Mirena. I actually had that. I didn't keep that for too long because that actually gave me a lot of symptoms. My hair started falling out. I got a cyst on my ovaries. So my doctor decided, okay, let's change it to the paragard because the Mirena has a lot of hormones and things in it. And the paragard, all it is apparently is just a copper T. So I went to my OBGYN. We went ahead and switched it out and didn't think any more about it. So 3 years goes by. February of 2014, I noticed that my cycle was a little late, and I just chopped it up to, I had started out a new workout regimen. I had lost 50 pounds. I was working out every day. I was eating right, and I know that when you start a new routine, your body tends to get off track. So 1 or 2 days go by, didn't think nothing of it. I just decided, okay, whatever, it'll come the next day. Then 3-4 more days go by, and I spoke with my husband. I said, I'm late on my cycle. And he's like, oh, you have the paragard, you know, don't worry about it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Nothing to worry about. So another day goes by, and I started thinking like, oh, okay, well, I've never been this late, even though I have the paragard in, but okay, I'm not going to worry about it. So I had actually that night spotted a little bit, so I figured, okay, it's on its way. Whew, thank God. I was just stressing out. I was worried. So then that night I had got a phone call from one of my family members saying that she had dreamed a fish. I don't know if y'all have heard of that wives' tale that if you dream a fish, somebody in your family is pregnant. So she said, oh, I've been dreaming of fish. Somebody's pregnant, and I think it could be you. And I'm like, no, it can't be me because I have the paragard in. So, nah, girl, you crazy. So after I hung up the phone with her, I looked at my husband and I said, you know what? I'm late on my cycle. Yes, I know I still have the birth control in, but let me just go to the store just to be sure. So he was like, oh, okay, Walmart's just down the street. So we got in the car, drove to Walmart. I ended up getting the first response package. It had 2 tests in it. So we got home. Luckily, I had to pee. And so I got home, went into the bathroom, did my thing on the stick, set it down. Me and my husband just sitting there chit-chatting, talking. And I know it says you got to wait 3 minutes. So I kind of just glanced over on the sink. And of course, I've taken pregnancy tests before because I have 3 prior children. So I immediately saw that it was 2 lines, even though the line was as faint as it could get because the test hadn't completed. The whole 3 minutes haven't went by. So I jumped off the toilet. I grabbed the test and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. And my husband's like, what? I'm like, 2 lines are showing up. And he's like, no, 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 no. I'm like, look at this test. There's 2 lines there. He's like, oh, okay, well, I really don't see it. And I'm like, just give it a couple of minutes. So we waited a minute and it started getting a little bit darker. So he looks again and he's like, oh yeah, I see something. And I'm like, I told you that there's 2 lines. So he looks at me, I look at him, and I'm like, but how could this be? Because I have the paragard in. So we're both sitting there in shock. And I said, well, let me do a self-check, because when you have the paragard, I don't know if you know, but they recommend that you do monthly self-checks to make sure that the paragard is there still in place. So I went ahead and did a self-check, and lo and behold, the IUD is still there. It's still in place. So now we're really freaking out, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit freaky. So me and him just kind of sat there, like literally in silence for a couple of minutes, like, now what do we do? And so I was like, okay, I have to go to the emergency room, because from what I read online, it could be a tubal pregnancy, it could burst, you could bleed to death. Like, literally, you can die from this. So it freaked me out. We hopped in the car. We went to the emergency room. I told him I just tested positive on a first response pregnancy test, but I have the paragard in. So they took me back to triage. They gave me a cup. They said, okay, give us a urine sample in this cup. We'll see for ourselves. So the nurse goes out. She comes back in and she's like, we got a positive. And then I was like, but how could that be? Like, literally, I have the paragard in. She was like, well, just like every other birth control, it's only 99.9%. I'm like, wow, really? And so she leaves out. The doctor comes in. He says, okay, I want to do an exam. I want to see what's going on up there. So he does an exam. He sees, he's like, the IUD is still intact. He says, we're going to do a beta, which, if you don't know what a beta is, it's a number that you can collect to see kind of how far along in your pregnancy are you. So he went and did a beta test. He came back. He said, well, your beta is at 16, which means you literally just got pregnant, or this is not a viable pregnancy. So what I want you to do is I want you to get in contact with your OBGYN, and I want you to do a follow-up beta test. Your beta is supposed to double every 48 hours if your pregnancy is viable. So I contact my OBGYN. We get in. She says, okay, come in 48 hours later, and we do a beta draw. So I did my beta draw, and at that time, it was at 28. So they were like, okay, it's rising, but it's rising slow. So these are your options. You could either leave the paragard in, or we could take it out. They gave me the pros and cons to each, which there were pros and cons to leaving it in. There was pros and cons to taking it out. Leaving it in, a couple was just, it could puncture the sac, which will cause a miscarriage, or it could be in the way of a limb to where the baby's arm could not possibly grow, the leg could not possibly grow, or it could pierce the actual sac itself. Or taking it out, you can miscarry, set up an infection, and things like that. So me and my husband talked about it, and I opted to remove it. So the doctor came in, he removed it, he explained to me what to look for, what could happen, and things like that. So I went home, just, you know, it's like at this point, whatever it's going to be, whatever it's going to be. I wasn't planning on getting pregnant, so it's just like, if the baby sticks, great. If not, you know, my heart would be broken, but again, it was something that I never planned for. So a couple of hours go by, I noticed a little cramping. They told me that would happen. Okay, so that's cool. So the next day I had a hair appointment. I went to go get my hair done, and you know, I was still cramping and things like that, and I noticed that the cramps got a little bit stronger, and I was like, I wonder what this is. But again, I was just like, oh, well, I'm just cramping. They just did the whole little procedure thing, so I didn't think nothing of it. Well, after my hair appointment, I go home. I told my husband I haven't been feeling good all day. I've been cramping. I've been just hurting. So I ended up, he said, well, let's just go, you know, get something to eat and stuff. So I go and I use the bathroom and I wipe, and I notice this just discharge that it wasn't bright red blood, but I knew it was blood, more so like old blood. Sorry if that's TMI, but I'm just putting this out there for people that's experienced this before. So I noticed this, and it looked like it had tissue in it. And I told my husband, I said, well, I haven't had one before, but I think I could be miscarrying. So we ended up not going to go eat. We went to the emergency room. They hooked me up. They did an ultrasound. They didn't see anything because they said that my beta levels had to at least be at a 1500 in order to see anything on the machine. And at that time, my beta levels had only rose to a 58. So with me having the discharge and with my beta levels not doubling like they should, the doctor informed me, he said, well, most likely this is not a viable pregnancy. With, you know, you being pregnant with the IUD, it probably didn't attach fully, so that's why it's not developing the way it should. He said that I could either opt out to take a pill, Zytotec or something like that. Don't quote me. I guess it's a pill that you can take to start your miscarriage or get rid of it. Or he said that I can just let my body do what it's going to do to get rid of it. And I don't believe in abortions or things like that. I don't knock people that do, to each his own. Just personally for me, I don't. So I told him, well, if this is not a viable pregnancy, then my body should know what it needs to do to get rid of it. So I don't want to take any medicine. I just want to go home. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So I go home, me and my husband and the kids, we go home and I get some rest. The next day we decided to take the kids out to a park to go play and just things like that. I just wanted to get my mind off of everything and just have some fun with my kids. So we went to the park and I noticed, you know, we were walking around the park. I was drinking water. I was cramping a little bit more. And then all of a sudden I felt this big gush, like literally like I used the bathroom on myself. So I ran to the bathroom immediately and literally it was blood everywhere. At that moment I knew. I said, oh yeah, we just lost this baby. This is a miscarriage. So at that point, I cleaned myself up. I went and told my husband. Unfortunately, we had to end up leaving because of that. So we ended up leaving. I ended up going back to the emergency room just to confirm what I already knew what was happening. They confirmed what was happening. And they said, well, you are miscarrying. We still want you to follow up with your OBGYN. Go every 48 hours so we can see that your HCG levels are going to drop, which means that the baby is discharging itself from my body, because if my levels was still staying the same or going up, then I would possibly have to have a procedure called a DNC, which it's a procedure where they go up in the uterus and they scrape out the remaining particles of the baby, the placenta, and whatever else is in there. Because if not, if you leave that up there, you can get infections and it can just turn for the worse. So I went back, like they said, 48 hours later, and my HCG levels had dropped down to an 11. So again, it was confirmed, yes, you're having a miscarriage. Your body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's expelling the baby. Once your levels get back down to 0, then your body will set itself and get back on track. So I did that. Went back, levels finally went down to 0. So, okay, she said, okay, wait. It could be anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks before your body jumps back on track after that, before you see a cycle again. So again, I had the miscarriage in February. I went the whole month of March. The end of March, I ended up getting a cycle again. It was a little off, but still it was a cycle. So I was happy about that my body was starting to get back on track. They told me that they wanted me to have 1 cycle before deciding to put the birth control back in. And I know this is crazy, but I ended up putting the paragard back in just due to the fact that they told me that the reason why most likely I got pregnant on an IUD was because I had lost so much weight and the IUD shifted itself. So that if I get it put back in again, that it should be snug and secure. And after every 10 pounds that I lost again, thus for after that, just go back and get it checked to make sure it's in there tight and secure. So I said, okay, I never had a, problem with it before, and it's just something you don't have to think about. I don't have to think about getting shots. I don't have to think about taking pills. I don't have to think about having something in my arm. So I really enjoyed having the paragard. So I opted to get that back in. So they said, okay, let's wait till your first cycle. That way your cervix is dilated a little bit and you can just have a quick procedure, be in and out. So I scheduled that appointment. Once my cycle came, went in, saw my OBGYN. She inserted it. She said, okay, you're good to go. This shouldn't happen again, and sent me on my way. So a couple of days go by, and of course, you're going to cramp. You just had this device inserted into your uterus. So, okay, of course, I cramped, spotted a little bit. That's the norm. It happened the first time. A week goes by, and I still noticed that it was a lot of cramping, and I felt very irritable, like something wasn't right. So I talked to my doctor. I said, this is going on a little longer than I thought. She was like, oh, just give it some time. Your body has went through a lot of trauma. Your cervix is still probably irritated from the miscarriage, so just give it some time. So I said, okay. Gave it a little bit more time. I noticed that, I was starting to get older and things like that. And I'm like, okay, something's not right. This is definitely, something's going on. So I called her and I told her, I said, I believe that I have an infection. So I went to go see her. She said, she gave me an exam. She said, yes, you have an infection. So she put me on an antibiotic, which was, I do believe, a Z-Pack, where it's literally 2 pills, but I think they're so strong that that's all you need. So I was on a Z-Pack, and by that time, well, let me go back just a little bit. Before I had called her and got the Z-Pack, my body had actually expelled the paragard and just got rid of it. Like, literally, my body cramped it out. And from what my OBGYN said, that's normal, that when you set up infection and my uterus was still dilated a little bit from being on my cycle, that it was easy. And with the cramping, like, literally, my body just got rid of it. It's like, okay, what is this foreign? My body did what it's supposed to do. That I have this foreign object inside of my body. It's not working right. Let's get rid of it. So I'm glad that my body works right. But I got on the Z-Pack, took care of that, ended up falling pregnant literally right after that, with this little one. So pretty much my experience with the paragard was good and bad. Like I said, would I recommend the paragard to people? Yeah. Would I say be careful? Yes. Everybody is different. Everybody accepts birth control different. So just because it didn't work for me like it should have, don't mean it wouldn't work for you. I would just say be very cautious of it. just as well with any birth control, like they say 99.9%, you still have that 1% chance of your birth control failing. And as you can see, I was that 1% that the birth control failed. And from what research shows, I don't know, don't quote me, I just heard that the paragard is actually the second best to a tubal ligation. So just think, that failed me. So after this pregnancy, I've already opted to get my tubes tied. I'm praying that that works for me and that I do not get pregnant again, because like I said, I don't believe in abortion. So if I got pregnant after my tubes got tied, I would be having 5 kids. But like they say, whatever's meant to be is meant to be. And some things in life you just can't control. So guys, I hope some of this information was valuable to you. Sorry if I was just all over the place. I didn't write any notes. I'm just trying to go off the top of my head. Please give this a video a thumbs up, so that way other women that's going through this, they can see that they're not alone, and other people out there in the world are experiencing what they're experiencing. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I try to upload videos pretty frequently. I'm going to be uploading another video today, so be on the lookout for that. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.